Welcome to the Culture Fit podcast, a podcast helping you arrive, thrive, and succeed whilst living and studying and working in Australia. We cover everything from settling in after you first arrive, to tips and tricks, to developing yourself, to exploring and working far away from home. I'm your host, Vincent, and with me today is my fellow Communiteer co-founder, CEO, and longtime friend, Victor. Remember, I'm Vincent, he's Victor, and one day we're going to start a consulting firm together. Sure. Vic, before we get started, can you tell us a little about your sort of professional background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And lovely to meet everyone. So I've been a bit of jack of all trades, but let's start with why I've been here. I've been in Australia for about 30 years, and I've always loved the idea of volunteering. It's part of what we do as a family unit when we first arrived. And since then, we've just basically tried different jobs and different fields that ties in with community building, people, recruitment, etc. So my work experience actually been quite varied. It started from recruitment, which is helping people find jobs, then to doing a bit of management consulting and event management. I again getting people together for a common reason, and then actually jumped into the not-for-profit sector where I met a lot of people who are working for different kind of positive social impact, and then gradually worked in housing, again employment, training, and social justice. But we started this about 10 years ago, and that's where we've been all the time.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Likewise, I have very similar uh, experiences to you, I guess, in that I have benefited from a lot of people who have helped me at school while I was growing up, and we're also migrants in a similar time period. And I've worked across mostly digital, so UX, IT project management, and more recently Agile Scrum for almost 20 years now, which is scary to think about. The last 10 years or so we've been doing this, but even before this I was doing some volunteering across so primary school, teaching primary school kids philosophy, would you believe it? And secondary school kids tutoring, and uni tutoring as well. Did you mention that you've had some experience with youth as well?
Yeah. So I mean, you can see my LinkedIn CV if you want, but I think for me, it's always been about people, predominantly young people. So I've worked in youth housing as well as youth mental health, and then I think more closely, I'm talking about like the last 10 years. We've been doing a lot more about student engagement and well-being, which is where I think volunteering could play a big part in. So yeah, it's throughout my life. I'm still doing some mentoring myself right now. That's my kind of volunteering on the side, and I'm also really passionate about helping people with kind of career advice and helping them with finding a job and how to get there as well.
I suppose my experience is a bit simpler in the sense that most of the time that I've spent with young people across primary school all the way up to uni, I've just mostly battled to keep their attention long enough for me to teach them something. A little background before we get into the podcast. This is the introduction episode. So just to let you know, there is a second section which is a little more fun and casual if you want to go through that. But right now, I just want to give you a little background on Communiteer, which is the organization that we co-founded and that we are creating this podcast for. So the name Communiteer comes from the combination of two words, community and volunteer. And for a number of years, we've spent facilitating, sort of bringing together corporate employees and also community organizations, namely not-for-profits and charities, to help benefit, I guess, Australian society as a whole. And so whereas I think we did find a lot of interest with a lot of corporate volunteers, unfortunately, it was always difficult to get sort of critical mass of these corporate volunteers purely because of their life stage. It's not that they don't want to do it, but they're working on their career, they're working on their family, and a variety of other personal and professional things. So we've found that over time, we've sort of dabbled in the university and student volunteering space. We've found a far more engagement and uptake from the student body. And if you think about it, it makes sense. I did actually spend some time a few years ago researching this area, but for a lot of the international students, it it comes down to sort of three areas. They're new to Australia, so they're trying to build a connection with other people because they often don't have family or close relatives. They're also looking to be a part of the community rather than just a tourist who lives here or who's traveling through. Finally, let's be pragmatic, you're also looking for some sort of career, right? You're trying to develop a set of skills and you would like to use that to earn a living. So for us, going back to community and volunteer, we believe that these three things can be achieved, especially by the international students, but not exclusively by them, through volunteering in the community. On that front, Vic, could you tell us a little about some of the programs that Communiteer runs at the moment that fit into that?
I mean, look, we are constantly innovating to find better fit for where volunteering goes within your international student journey. In fact, we've actually started specializing in international students' experience only about 3 years ago when we started with the state government of New South Wales and then the federal government after that. But I think there are three kind of key programs that we run for the last 2 years, and it's running kind of every semester, every trimester. Namely, the first one is our airport welcome desk, which we run in partnership with the New South Wales government, and it's about engaging international students and some domestic students who are interested in the international culture to pay it forward to volunteer at the desk as customer support reps and help newly arrived international students who might be traveling overseas for the first time, who are definitely living by themselves for the first time, who don't really know where they're going, and who might just feel a bit anxious about just being in a new country, a new place, and when frankly walking off a 12-hour flight, it's not an easy thing to do. So it's actually having that desk there with international students supporting international students to help them settle in that kind of first instance and really make a good impression of what New South Wales and Australia is about. So that's the welcome desk at the airport. We run that in Sydney and in Newcastle, and hopefully, touch wood, with the new airport coming in Western Sydney as well, supposedly opening next year, but that's a different story. Another program that we run that we're quite proud of is what we call the AusBuddy program. Essentially, again, it's trying to find international students who are maybe further down the track in their lives in Australia, who are then attracted to meeting and helping an international students who might be 6, 12 months behind them on the journey, to not necessarily help them make some decisions, but more guiding them on some things that they might have experienced themselves, or frankly making less mistakes in choices that you have to make throughout your university life and in settling into Australia. So ideally, someone who's been here for 12 to 18 months would be a great candidate to volunteer their time and knowledge to help someone who's only arrived here 6, maybe 9 months ago. And someone who's found a job here and decided to settle in would be a great candidate to volunteer their time and, again, experience in helping someone in their final year who are looking to do the same. So overcoming those questions about visa, employment, how to get a job, where to look for them, those things, we're part of the equation, but I think hearing directly from someone who's been through that journey is a really powerful element of that kind of AusBuddy program. Last but not least is our Local Legends program. And essentially what we want to do is create an opportunity for international students to come together in groups and volunteer at an event. We've seen a lot of times where international students would arrive in Australia, and for the first 3 to 6 months, because they don't really know anyone, they tend to go from their dormitory or accommodation, go to the campus to do their studies, go back to the dormitory after campus studies, and then go back and forth, and they don't really understand why they chose to live in Burwood or Randwick or City of Sydney, whatever it may be. And I think volunteering is a really powerful way and a really easy way for people to just come out and go, well, let's actually meet some locals, let's do something for the local area, and at the same time be able to maybe get in touch with some of the local history that we're quite rich in, especially around the city area. So again, 3 programs: Welcome Desk, AusBuddy, Local Legends, but I'd love to tell you more about it later on and how you can get involved.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about volunteering is people, once they get past a certain low barrier to get engaged with someone in conversation or just to do something together, they can do it fine. But that first step is often quite difficult, whether you're an international student or whether you're local. And so having a, a program, having a cohort of people that you can be a part of and say, oh, this is why we're doing it together, it does give you a lot more things to do outside of just studying and then going home, or work and then going home, which, let's be honest, a lot of locals do that as well. So,
Yeah, and I think, I mean, regardless of what your cultural background is and whether you're introvert and extrovert, I mean, we've seen people who wants to just do things, so they apply and be part of a volunteering event and then end up meeting people, or they just fortunately met someone at the airport or on their way back to the accommodation, and then they go, well, what can we do together? Let's go to the volunteering event together. So it could be connection first and volunteering second, or it could be volunteering first and connection second. And as you said before, Vince, I think that combination of connections, culture, and career, it doesn't have to be a one straight line. It could be one after the other, or you take a pause and then you come back. So again, volunteering is quite flexible. It's just finding the right people at the right time to do it.
yeah, yeah. I suppose in a way it's the four C's: connection, community, culture, and career. At a certain point, we'll remember it. But look, we're getting old, okay? What can you expect from this podcast? I know we've spent some time talking about Communiteer. Let's talk about the actual podcast and what you can expect in the future. So hopefully you can decide, hey, this is interesting enough for me to check out again. Every episode, and we're hoping to do fortnightly episodes. Yep. We will see if there is more interest, then maybe we can do more. But at the moment, just resource-wise, we're hoping to commit to once every 2 weeks. And every episode is going to be 2 main segments. The first one is going to be a bit more formal, a bit more presentation, if you will. It doesn't have to be PowerPoint slides, but rather it's, here is the information. We've invited these guests. We've done this research, background research, and here are the reasons, here are the different perspectives, and so on and so forth. So it's much more straightforward. I don't want to say documentary style, but it's very factual. And we would like to keep it that way, because this is the densest information you're going to get, so that you don't feel like you're just waiting for us to waffle on about something. The second part, because we don't want everything to be super serious, the second part is what I'm going to call the fun half, where we're still going to be talking about something that's relevant to the first topic, but we're going to do it a little more lighthearted, so there's going to be more discussions, more stories. I've been on the internet for way too long, so I would love for us to do tier lists, quizzes, AMAs, all sorts of things. Not just from us two. We've been around for a long time. I'm sure by episode 2 you're going to be a little bored with our faces, but we would like to get more people involved. That's ranging from guests, from academia, industry professionals, government, the community, but also we would like to invite some international students as well to share their own experiences. Vic, is there any topic that comes to mind that you would like us to explore?
Before that, can I just expand and follow
sure.
on what you said about the podcast? I think, look, for us, we watch a fair bit of podcasts, but we've been thinking about starting a podcast for a while, but there wasn't just enough reason to do so. But I think for me, other than organizing a lot of kind of good, impactful volunteering programs and events, and also, I guess, committing to a regular newsletter, we hope that the podcast is a way for you to kind of get to know us a bit better than to hear directly from us. Where it's not specifically, particularly polished. We're not here to give you a presentation. A lot of things would be coming from our heart and also impromptu, as in we just think about it and this is how we feel, and so we share it with you. That's good, the kind of the level of authenticity in terms of the content that we want to share with you. As Vincent mentioned, there are bits that are practical and useful that we want to give it to you in kind of verbal conversational form, which is the first half of each podcast. And the second half is really trying to make things a bit lighter so that you can, again, we can appeal to you as a human being, as a fellow either international student or someone from a different cultural background. I wasn't born here, so I can empathize with some of the challenges that you might feel, and hopefully by exchanging these opinions and perspective, it can help you with your journey here in Australia.
We're not so old that we don't remember what it's
Speak
like
for yourself.
to grow up. Okay. We've known each other for probably longer than some of you have been alive. So if you hear a little banter here and there, that's where it's coming from. It's all good natured. But going back to the question, is there any one thing that you think would be really interesting for us to explore?
Um,
I mean, while you're thinking about that, for me, one thing I'd really like to explore is for the international students and how they view employment. And what I mean by that is a lot of the research that we've done in terms of just engaging people and talking to international students, there is that beginning stage of, well, I need a part-time job in order to help sustain myself. And then at a certain point, you want to make that transition to, well, I've spent 3 years studying this and I like to practice that craft. Even for the local students, they have the problem of the age-old, well, if I don't have experience, I can't get the interview or the internship or the whatever.
who's asking for someone with experience?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'd like to know more about how much more challenging it is for international students, because in my mind, that's one of the reasons that you can stay here, because if you don't have money, well, unfortunately, we live in a world where, unfortunately, you have no support here, so you got to go home. Which for a lot of people, they would like to stay here, and it's very nice, as you can see out in nature. Right, we've got plenty of nature.
Look, I certainly am fascinated by that topic. I think the deeper you dig into the topic, the more commonality you see between domestic students and international students. There are some common challenges. It is hard to get the first job, and that's definitely, I guess, one of the three areas we want to focus on, careers. But I think for me, I don't necessarily want to pick a single topic. What I am constantly learning is different struggles, challenges, and also highlights from international students at different stages of their lives. So just as when I was last year, I was talking to external stakeholder going, oh, I've met hundreds of people who have just landed. I feel like I know exactly what they're feeling and what they're looking for. Out comes a pair of high school students that have just arrived by themselves with a guardian that they're not related to. And for the first time, like, oh, yeah, of course there are international students who are under 18s who want to start their journey in Australia, as early as possible. And that's a completely different set of challenges that I didn't think about before. So I think for me, if we can get to a point where, regardless of where you're from, what stages in life you're in, and maybe you're married with two kids and coming with as a mature age international student, or you're 14 and you're trying to come in as a boarding school high school student, if we can identify your needs, what you want to listen to and want to hear about, and meet that need either through our own experiences or through our guest speakers or our research, then I think we've done the best part of the podcast, and then we can kind of organically grow from there.
Yeah, yeah. And for what it's worth, I mean, maybe I'm just being a little petty, but a lot of international students, they come from countries where they were educated by, let's face it, a lot of American English teachers. And when they come to Australia, they use terms, and we just don't use those terms here. So I want to push back a little. And after Bluey, and the popularization of Bluey, and how a lot of those Australian slangs and terms have become more popularized, I'd like us to be the second push of that wave. So anyway,
You watch Bluey?
yes, yes,
At
I
least
do.
I've got an excuse because I've got a 7-year-old.
I don't need an excuse.
Sure.
That's the difference between you and
Target audience.
I am not ashamed. So, look, if you're interested in our content, this is the first segment. In the next episode and onwards, we're going to present a given topic, and we'll provide information on that topic with our research and different perspectives and discussions and so on and so forth. But for this first episode, we just wanted to tell you a little about us, about Communiteer as an organization, about us as individuals, and what this podcast is going to be about. So if you're interested and you're seeing this on, I don't know, YouTube, hit that like button and subscribe and all those. No, smash that like button. God, I'm cringing so hard. And if you're seeing this via a video on our mailing list or in an email, feel free to check out or join our mailing list so that you can keep up to date with the latest episodes.
Yeah, and I'll build on that. You'll probably see this hopefully in the near future through your university channels. Ideally, before you even arrive in this country, and the best way for us to keep in touch with you is if you become our subscriber. So there's no fees attached. We just want to get to know you and for you to get to know us and all the things that we're trying to do here. So please subscribe. Let us keep in touch with you and then push information and content that would be relevant for wherever you are on the journey.
Are you ready for our first sponsor? This episode is sponsored by water. I'm kidding. We don't have a sponsor. But water is really nice. You should drink it. Okay, and we are back for segment 2. We just had to fight over which position is more photogenic. I mean, clearly it's this one. Anyway, so for the second segment, I was hoping we can talk a little more about our experiences growing up in Australia. This is linked to the first segment. Hey, what are we trying to do here? And for many of you who may be new to Australia, this episode is quite broad. So I have here 6 things that personally we didn't understand about Australia. But
You.
in this case, okay, fine. In this case, it's I didn't understand, and I'd like to get Victor's thoughts on this. We've known each other for almost 30 years. I suppose we never really talked about this. Well, we kind of have here and there. But this is the first time we're trying to put this in a recordable format for the internet to record forever. All right. The first one is when you go to work or when you go to a certain, in an Australian context, you go to a place and on a Friday or sometimes even a Thursday, people will say, hey, let's go to the pub after work. And I didn't realize until my late 20s, after having worked for a number of years, that was, I mean, it was about alcohol. Don't get me wrong, because alcohol is expensive. But it was actually an opportunity for them to socialize.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder what you think people were doing when they're just drinking.
Drinking.
Well, sure, but I think I don't think it's unique to Australia. There's a kind of a work personality or demeanor that people have at work.
Yes.
And going out for a drink, especially if the boss is not around, is a way for you to really kind of either have a whinge about work or talk about stuff that you can't in a workplace, and you just kind of have a more kind of informal, casual demeanor. And that's where you really kind of build some friendships with your colleagues and people you work with.
And I suppose for a lot of people, and maybe it's because I'm not like this, but often they need a bit of alcohol in order to help them relax and therefore be able to talk.
Well, in your case, you just
I
get
just
a
do
red
it.
flush and then you just get drunk. So that might not be helpful.
That's the other thing, because I don't really need that in order to be able to say things. But some people,
sure.
they really,
Well, for
really
most
need
people, they do tend to talk more and open up with a little bit of alcohol, not too much.
it. Yeah.
Beyond that, it becomes probably a screaming fest, or you're talking too much at a certain
Yeah.
point. But yes, there are some chemical attributes to it. But I think all in all, it is part of Australian culture, especially when I grew up, which is most people go to the pub to get a beer.
Yep.
And then it changed to a wine culture, and then it became a cocktail culture, and now there's all these mixed drinks and party pops and all this stuff because the beer's getting too expensive and all this stuff. So anyway,
I have no idea what you just
the
said.
fact is that drinking is part of the Australian culture,
It is.
and when people say let's go to the pub, it literally means let's go and get to know each other and socialize.
Yeah.
At
And
the workplace.
and look, for the people out there who are thinking, oh, but do I have to drink alcohol? I found out later on, perhaps too late, you don't have to drink alcohol. You can get a soft drink. You can get a lemon bitters, which is
Well,
non-alcoholic.
Okay, well, I think that depends on who you go out with.
Well, sure.
So-
but generally, if it's like a work thing,
Well, I think it's definitely much more accepted nowadays that you don't need to drink.
yeah,
There was once upon a time, I know when I worked in recruitment, that if you do not drink, even if you can't hold down your alcohol, that seems almost like a disrespect or you're not one of us, that kind of thing, because drinking is such a culture in recruitment. Much like
interesting.
construction, much like investment fund, like finance, they're kind of heavy Friday night drinkers, and that's when you go and bond. And if you're not doing it, then you're not part of the team.
You have to be one of the boys.
Well, not necessarily boys, but you have to be one of us.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
But now,
I
now,
see.
thankfully, the prices have gone up. So I think at the same time,
It's
people are
really costly to
a
be.
bit more open about, well, not everyone has to drink. It's not a Nazi thing anymore. You can have non-alcoholic beer if you want, but at least you're there and you're socializing. Then that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, speaking of a lot of these sort of interactions between people, one of the things that is often spoken about, and something that I guess because I grew up here, you arrived in '92, so you were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
About that, and I arrived '91, so I was about 7. I guess I never really realized until I went back to China where I was born, but people here tend to be very direct, or I suppose more direct than a lot of other places. I don't know. This was maybe like 30 years ago, right? 20, 30 years ago. Maybe they're less so now, but they can still be direct. And to be clear, this isn't saying like just being extremely racist. It's just like, they're just like, oh, where are you from? What do you like? Blah, blah, blah. And it comes across as, I guess, almost naive in a way.
I think it's just a difference in culture where I should see the Australian culture being probably middle of the park in terms of directness, like compared to, say, South African,
Sure. Yeah.
right, which is much more direct than German. Whereas, given that I am from a Chinese background, originally from Hong Kong, that it's a sign of respect to not question your elders, to not ask the tricky question in the open, that you do it one-on-one. So that's part of the culture of being more conservative, and that's how you show respect. And therefore, it is rare to suddenly go, okay, this graduate just walked up to the CEO and start asking him or her questions. Wow, like that would never happen in Hong Kong, for example. Yeah, to me, I guess because I grew up here, I've met people who are even more straightforward. We're kind of in the middle of the park. But for someone who just literally landed here from Asia, it could be like, wow, why are you asking me about, my background and history and etc.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I think it really depends on a lot of different factors. And certainly for me, I never felt that as much because my parents were quite direct as well. So, that's also like a family thing. So if your family isn't quite like that, then it may be a bit more confronting when you're here. Australians tend to take themselves a little less seriously, so they're more willing to use self-deprecating humor and not as self-serious. I mean, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders before that, but from the British settlers onwards, the English settlers onwards, most of the people here were convicts.
I would say that there's definitely broad agreement that we used to have a larrikin-based culture, which is, don't take yourself too seriously. If the conversation becomes too stale, you crack a joke, and then that kind of just breaks the ice and get everyone together. I also think that because our demographic is quite multicultural to start off with compared to most other countries, it's just easier to find commonality if you make fun of yourself to then kind of get everyone to come together to, oh yeah, we've all done stupid stuff before, or oh, we've all been in that awkward situation before. It's just easy to kind of clear the air instead of going, so what's your life history? Oh, okay, well, no, there's nothing here, so we need to go find something else.
It's an interesting thing about Australia as well, because Australia's, from what I have seen, Australia's multicultural in a way that's quite different, I think, from, let's say, the UK or the US.
Yeah, it's like we've got waves of migration.
Yes. Well, we have waves, and also, for example, in the US, right, there's a lot of pockets of people, so you can kind of live anywhere, apart from some parts of the middle where it's mostly desert. But there's a lot of different places where people can sort of form their own enclaves, and that's kind of it. And when you look at the UK, it's a lot of rain. There's just not a lot of socializing outside, so everyone's
Sure.
miserable. I know what I'm saying. But in Australia, most people tend to live on the eastern coast, right? Because that's where the arable land is. That's where the jobs are. Also, probably best beaches. Don't at me, Adelaide and Perth. Place. I'm just throwing shade at places that I've never been to. But in a way, we're kind of forced together by location, and at the same time, because we're sort of in that same area and we come from a lot of different backgrounds, it's you're trying to balance the I don't know too much about everyone here, and we're also trying to find some common ground, as you were saying earlier. So laughing at yourself tends to be one of the easier ways in which you can do that, I suppose.
Yeah, and I also think, and this is on a kind of a lighter, positive note, um, they don't stereotype people that hard unless it's part of a joke, and therefore, making fun of yourself, it's almost like, okay, I'm showing some vulnerability.
Mm.
You know, maybe you've been in an equally awkward situation and you can relate and you come forward and kind of connect with me that way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have kind of pockets of very established culture, you tend to have to go in with a language first,
Yeah.
and then kind of other kind of very cultural aspect that unless you're an insider, you become an exclusive kind of
You
viewer.
have to
So,
justify your
Correct.
your position in that community.
yeah, and I see a lot of this kind of cross-cultural stuff, especially between international students, because I think especially like welcome desk or some of the volunteering programs we run for newly arrived students, other than obviously what you look like and sound like, you're all here kind of on the same boat at the same time. So it's quite easy to find common ground if you just share what your experiences are,
Yeah.
especially through humor, if that's possible. Or it might be you walked into the wrong shop, in the first week that you're here. So that becomes a common theme that everyone can relate to. So I think it's just based on relatability.
And I suppose if you're off further outside of the cities, I mean, we're in Sydney, but Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, I suppose Adelaide, Canberra's very small, etc. If you're outside of the big cities, I think a lot of those communities in the rural and regional parts of Australia is less multicultural, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're they're antagonistic towards you. It doesn't mean that they don't want you there. It's just they don't know anything about you. They're just kind of living their own lives.
Well, I always say there's always a Chinese restaurant in every
Yeah.
semi-big town, right? But that's a different part of the history.
Yeah, yeah.
Goes
yeah.
away from Go Rush. Anyway,
Moving on. Next one, number 4 is sport. One thing that I remember reading, I don't remember where, it's been a long time, or I want to say more than 20 years ago, is that someone compared sport in Australia to religion in other countries, in the sense that while there are various religions and religious communities in Australia, there just isn't as much of a following, as much of a gathering around a particular denomination or a particular faith or a particular deity. But sport is one of those things where there's a few big ones and they are very big in Australia. And in a lot of ways, from what I've heard, because I'm not a big sporting person, we tend to perform a lot better, based on the size of the country and resources and whatnot, compared to a lot of other countries. So I had no idea that was a thing.
yeah. Look, I would definitely agree with you that I'll compare the sporting heritage of Australia to almost like our original religion, so to speak. I think starting point is we are a very diversified country.
Mm.
And obviously we've got a rich history in Indigenous Australians, but in terms of actual religion that is widespread, that has evolved pretty much every 10 years, depending on what's the latest round or wave of migrants. So sport becomes again another common language that even if you don't speak the same language, you can actually still participate. Right? I can see I was not shocked, but I was surprised when I first arrived and I see that the most culturally diverse place is actually at a cricket pitch. Like there'll be Indians playing with Pakistanis, with Australians and Kiwis and English, and you're like, I've never seen this sport before. They don't usually look like the same people that hang out together everywhere.
Why do they spend 3 days in?
But they spend 3 to 5 days hanging out, drinking beer together, and having a banter and making fun of each other, and still be competitive and respectful at the same time. It's just a very uniquely Australian thing. And then greater than that, like there's pockets of concentrated sport fanatics. Like in Victoria, there's a big AFL following, so Australian Footy League.
Victoria and New South Wales.
Well, New South Wales is more NRL, so rugby league, whereas Victoria is more AFL, and then there's rugby union, which is national. Like again, it depends on where you're at. It's almost like there's
and the time of the year as well.
State-bound sports, and there's like national sport. But yes, we are definitely punching above our weight in terms of representation. For small population of 25 million in the scheme of things.
Also, depending on the season, tennis.
We do very well. I mean, to have one of 4 Grand Slams in Australia. Even though we barely picked up a racket maybe 150 years ago. Right. So that's a big thing, and so.
Let me think. What else? Golf. Golf. Isn't there an Australian Open, something like that? I don't know.
We are part of the circuit, but we're not like the slams, so to speak. But I think if I can contribute, the last thing is we do have a great outdoor, because of our natural resources. We're very privileged that way. It just leans towards sports and recreational activities.
Yes.
Because it's right there. Like anyone can pick up a ball and a bat and go to the beach and hang out with other people at the beach.
Beaches, hikes. A lot of walking trails.
Like I can't imagine playing cricket in a public beach in Hong Kong because you probably hit a lot of people.
Are there beaches in Hong Kong?
Well, thank you. Yes, there are beaches in Hong Kong.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, not the golden sands, but yes, there are sand and rocks and there are beaches, but there's probably 20 times more people, so you can't play cricket in an open area, right? It's
so number 5 is merit is important, but relationships still matter a lot. And what I mean by that is I think it was either before I came to Australia or immediately afterwards, going back to China and visiting relatives, there were a lot of times when we would talk about, as in I'd listen to my parents and their family and friends talk about, it's really hard to find a job in China, and it's really hard to get into a particular school or whatever it is, something like that, because you have to know someone who knows someone or whatever. And there was a very sort of relationship heavy aspect to that, which I think a lot of Asian countries do have those aspects. And part of the big difference, and from their perspective, the benefit of Australia is, well, you can be really good at something, and then you can find work and attain a positive status in society through that merit, through that ability to apply those skills. And I think one of the things I've found over time is that up to a certain point, yes, but then beyond that, you still have to know people. And it's not about, does my family know your family, so much as there are small communities that sometimes you still have to appeal to in order to get like an executive job or like...
I don't know whether it's something unique to Australia. I just think... I think the fact is merit can only get you so far, right? Because you're not the best in the world at something. And because most of the jobs you actually have to work with other people, so people's skills and ability to form connections and relationships do matter equally as merit. But what's I think unique in Australia is, unlike other, let's say, Asian countries I'm more familiar with, there's just less people, and therefore,
True.
Technically there's less competition. And when the competition is high, every little minute differences matter. So your
Yeah.
GPA 3.8 versus 4 actually really matters. And then your connections on top really matters. So everything is like a micro matter on top. Whereas here, if there's only 10 candidates fighting for one job, then yeah, the people who have an existing connection or who had a phone conversation with the person making that decision would probably be in the lead straight away. It's no longer 400 applicants for one job, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know whether it's uniquely an Australian thing, but I can tell you that a lot of the part-time jobs, especially in local businesses, they are more, I'll say by chance that you get it, which it then relies on connections more than anything else, because most small businesses don't advertise their roles. They rather go with someone that is referred to them.
Yeah,
Or
they
they
ask
know of.
around.
They
Do
ask
you know
around, and
someone?
therefore, I guess if you define that as connections, then yeah, that's the differentiation between, I guess, an international student who don't know anyone versus someone who knows someone's uncle runs a shop. Well, they might get the job because they're simply known to the boss.
Yeah. And last one, which I think you've already touched on, but uh, it seems like, or at least from a lot of the people that I've interacted with in work, in uni, and so on, a big reason for people coming to Australia is because of nature, right? Because a lot of people, they might go to Ireland or Canada or the US, but they're really, really drawn to nature here. And often, a lot of immigrant communities and families, they like if you go out 50 k's, 100 k's outside of Sydney, especially if it's on a weekend, especially if it's a family friendly time, right? Families, all of them, have gone out and they're all in the shorts and the shirt and the sunnies. It's yeah, yeah. It's basically free entertainment, which I guess is news for me, but that's because I burn like paper. My skin is very very fragile.
Okay, but I mean, back to your point about nature, I think it is one of those things that money can't buy if you're not in the right place,
Yeah.
right? So in a way, a lot of people are open to starting a new life or uprooting their family to come here because of that thing where it's perceived as more kind of equal opportunity that way. Like everyone can go to the beach. There's not a single beach here where you have to pay to go. There are some private beaches, but that's different. There's a lot of public infrastructure that you can go. There's heaps of national parks and trails you can access. I remember, I mean, outside of living in the capital cities, you can actually make a pretty good living just having an average job with average pay. Like you can actually survive quite well in Australia, where I don't think you can say the same everywhere else.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what your expectation is, and if a lot of it is about taking advantage or enjoying nature and what it can provide for you, including sports and infrastructure and venues and stuff, Australia could be that place. I mean, I can't imagine even my parents thinking about playing golf in Hong Kong because it's such an exclusive community
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
need multiple $1 million to even join the membership.
That's
Here, you can
ridiculous.
come in with 3 clubs and pay $20 and you can play a whole afternoon because it's so abundant,
Yeah.
right? There's land. It's a general public thing. It's not I mean, there are some kind of obviously
Very
higher
exclusive. Yeah.
exclusive communities as always, but there are definitely more um, venues that you can access just being the general public. So I think that, I mean, if that's the reason why you're here, other than to get a good education, I think that you really need to kind of take advantage of your time and experience here. Australia's culture and all the visit all the tourist attractions, etc.
Yeah, get out there and just don't forget, sunglasses, sunscreen,
Yeah,
umbrella.
that's a whole topic.
It's a whole
How to be
thing.
sun safe and how to kind of travel. I think that's a good, interesting topic and practical topic for us to talk about later on as well.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Are there any things that you didn't understand very much about Australia when you first got here?
Not really. I was
I get it.
well, look, when you're young, you don't know what you don't know. I
Sure.
think I came here when I was 9, so a lot younger than probably most of you. And I was fortunate enough to come with my parents, so I can empathize with some of the challenges that you might face, being from a different culture and having to learn a new language. I didn't speak a single word in English when I first arrived, but I had the support and I guess the fallback of having my parents around. But having said that, there are plenty of sayings in the Australian culture that I had to kind of gradually learn and understand over a period of time. We do a lot of shortening of words. We do a lot of description that is very kind of colloquial, and you either get it or you completely don't get it, and a translation tool wouldn't do the trick.
Yeah,
So some sayings, yeah. So maybe that's a good topic for an episode later on, where we share some of the common sayings that you might hear at a pub, and until someone tells you what it means, you have no idea what that means. But once you know it, you can't stop using it. Like those things are actually pretty cool. And then another thing is probably just because people enjoy their lifestyle so much, the work-life balance piece, the operating hours of shops, they're vastly different from where I used to.
Yeah, they close
Right.
pretty early.
Yeah, well, when I came here, all the shops close at 5, except for one night, and then on the weekends they don't even open. That was back in the 90s.
True.
Right now, it's actually extended, but in other parts of Australia, in Canberra, in Perth, Newcastle, Wollongong, you can see that the shops actually close early or close half day on the weekends because, even the workers, like just like any other people, would like to take the day off and go and do their thing.
And there's just not enough traffic.
And not enough traffic to justify opening shops. So that seems to be like a cultural shock because it means that if you don't get your stuff by a certain time, you can't just rock up to a shopping center and just get it.
You can't go to a supermarket at 11 p.m. at night to pick up stuff because you're hungry.
Yeah. And public holidays is like a global shutdown kind of thing. You have to get all your bread and eggs the day before. I mean, we'll cover that one day, I'm sure. But I think to me that's an extension of the cultural differences.
But don't worry, if you're in the city, you're going to be fine. Just go to a Coles, Woolies.
Depends on which city.
It's
and
fine.
which day.
Well, we'll get into that in a future episode. Okay, all right, let's wrap this up. Thank you very much for listening. If you're still listening, I really appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up in whichever platform, I don't know. And if you're interested, like our stuff, join our mailing list. Is there anywhere else they can find us?
Yeah, and also I think the best way is to refer to your friends. We're new in the podcasting world, first episode. Thank you, congrats. We've been around for a while and we'd love to get every single international student in Australia to become our subscriber.
Yeah.
So if you find this useful, if you're looking forward to what we're going to talk about next, please share it around, get more of your friends to subscribe so that we have a bigger and bigger base to kind of represent and talk to.
Yeah, and look, I don't know how you might do this, but assuming we do have some way for you to send us questions, however specific they may be. We'll try our best to answer them. We've been in Australia for a while, and having an audience who can benefit from our experiences would definitely be rewarding for us. So I really appreciate that. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you very much.